Okay. Now, as I've told you before, the quadratics are the quartic functions, which means x to the second power, x to the fourth power, x to the sixth power, x to the eighth power. All the even functions are going to look like a what? A parabola. But what will happen as the function gets bigger, as the degree gets bigger, the bottom will start to what? It'll start to flatten out. And that's what happens with the ending behavior for a quartic function. So anything with an even exponent is going to be arrows up or arrows what? Down. Versus the cubic functions, which is the third, the fourth, third, the fifth, the seventh, and so on, that'll look like these. Okay, so when you're asked about a higher function, all you got to remember is that if it leads with a odd, it's going to look like these. And if it's an even, it's going to look like these. That's all there is to it. I was going to show you. Now, what is the absolute extreme or absolute blah, 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 blah? Whenever you have a sag or a high point, this is the min. Max, this is the min. This is the min, this is the max, this is extreme max. Why is it extreme max? Because it's already just above the max. That's why. So sometimes you may be asked to find the extreme max and min and all that good stuff. Well, that's what it is. All right. It's the highest and what? Lowest points.
And is that defined by both x and y value, or they want
x and y value? And you can do that on your calculator, and I'll show you how as soon as we get to a. And hidden behavior. Here's a good one. We can actually go ahead and graph this function on your calculator. Get your calculator out. And I want you to graph this function. X cubed minus 2x squared plus x minus 2. Graph that function. So those of you on the calculator drill team, you can finally get your calculators out. Now, when you graph this function, and that's why we don't spend a lot of time on this section, is because you can do everything on the calculator. And there's no sense in wasting time with trying to teach it, because all you're going to do is do it on the calculator. So x cubed, x cubed, yes, minus 2x squared, Advil, plus x minus 2. Graph it, and when you graph it, you're going to say, okay, that's a cubic function or a odd function. But what you neglect is the hidden behavior, and the hidden behavior is right here. See this part right here? That's hidden behavior. So what you need to do is zoom. I zoom box because that's what I'm used to doing. And see, there's your hidden behavior. You've got an absolute max and absolute min, or min and the max. So I'm going to calculate. So I go to second, trace, and maximum. And then I'm going to go over and I'm going to put the left side of the max where I think it is, and the right side. And what that does, it narrows down the search for the calculator. You don't have to put it, but it narrows it down. And there is your max, 0.33 and negative 1.85. Now you do the same thing with your min. Second, trace, and min, and go over and pick the left hand side, pick the right hand side, and give it a guess, and it'll search until it finds it. And there is your 1 and -2 is your min. So that's how you use the calculator and how to find the max and the min. Capiche?
Well, why do they call it hidden?
Because you don't see it. When you just hit zoom standard, so you don't see it.
You can't see that little dip.
Yeah, you can't see the little dip. It looks like a normal, but the normal one does. I ain't got my thing drawn. Hold on. Normal cubic function would look like that.
There would never be any decrease, I guess.
Exactly. So you got to watch for the cubic functions. You got to watch those because sometimes they'll have that hidden behavior in them. That's all there is to it. Number of turning points. This is with any quadratic, any polynomial. You want to know how many turns? You just take the highest degree and subtract 1. So 3 minus 1 is what? It has 2 turns, one right here and one right here. If it's a fourth function, that means it has 4 turns. I meant 4, but it has 3 turns. So you have to watch for that hidden behavior.
So on the line you drew next to it, there would be no maximum or minimum.
There wouldn't be on this one, but this is just a standard cubic function. That squared is what messes up things. So a standard cubic function would just be like this. But when you add that square, what does the square do? It flattens things out. Like the parabola. Okay, you add the x to the 4th, it starts to square things out. And when that function right there starts to be applied to this function, it takes this function and starts to what? Square it out, start to flatten it out.
Well, is there a minimum or maximum on like x to the 6th where it just gets really flat? Does that apply?
Not necessarily, unless it has a cubic function in it, or unless it has a x to the 4th minus 3x cubed. Then it might. X to the 4th, it wouldn't.
Okay.
But you have to watch it. No, it had 3 turns in it, so graph. Hold on, let me get rid of all this stuff. So graph y is equal to x to the 4th. And delete and graph. So you'd have to zoom in. And zoom in maybe one more time. No, it just flattens out. So you got
it really never flattens, technically.
Well, it just starts to squash out. It doesn't flatten exactly, no. But the more you go up, the more it does flatten out. Okay? So you can put in x to the 6th. And you start to see it flatten out more. Will you please stop? So you see it flatten out more. So that's what those two. So the 2 or 3 things that you need to realize in this section for the test. Is 1, x to the odd power when it's the leading coefficient and the leading term is going to be something like that, or it could be the other way depending on, the reason it does this is because you don't know what the middle is going to do until you see what the number is. So they say the ending behavior looks like that versus the ending behavior of a quartic function is going to be looking like what? Like a parabola. It doesn't show this because it doesn't know what that looks like until you see what that number is. So this is ending behavior, and this is ending behavior for the two type functions. Know that you need to look for the max and the min with the calculator, and you need to look for hidden behavior, vice versa, before 3 or 4, whichever. You need to look for hidden behavior, especially if you start seeing a flattening. You need to really watch. If it starts flattening out, then you need to look for hidden behavior. And that's all that section I'm going to show. Again, we used to spend in college algebra before the calculator, you used to spend a whole week on this section.
Computing that.
Yeah. And talking about how it looked and all that. But now you don't do that because you got the calculator, and that's just time saved using the calculator. So there is times that I tell students to use the calculator when they need to. Not taking 15 and adding 24. That's not use the calculator. That's why people can't make change. Now, what about long division? Well, there's two types of division with polynomials. There's the type which I call single term division. And then there's long division. Now, a lot of people will ask me, what about synthetic division? I don't teach synthetic division. Why? Because it's restricted. You can't use it all the time. So is it benefiting you to teach you two ways that you can use some of the time and all the time? Or does it benefit you to teach one way all the time? I think it's better to teach you one way all the time. That way you don't have to learn the other way some of the time. So that's why I teach long division. Single term division is this. 4x squared plus 8x over 2x. That's single term division. Kind of like factoring, you just divide. 4x squared divided by 2x is what? 2x, and 8x divided by 2x is. So all of you know how to do single term division. The reason I show it is because some students, when I start talking about long division and division, they say, well, what were we doing back when we were doing math? And that's why I go ahead and show it so you know the difference. Long division, you have to remember one thing. All place values must be what? Accounted for. If there's a place value missing, do you just ignore it or do you fill it in? You fill it in. Okay? So it's an example. X squared minus 1 into x to the third plus x minus 6. Now we're not going to do this. I'm showing you what this rule is going to do. So, what do you need to do? Well, first of all, you look at both parts. Look at both parts. And is there anything missing here? Yes. What's missing? The x term. And what's missing in this series? The x squared. Y'all are impressed, huh?
Not yet. Just lost.
Now, the first question I get is, Hubert, how did you know that those were missing? Well, because you look at the highest degree of the polynomial, both of them. Take your highlighter. What's your highest degree here? The second degree. What's the highest degree here? The third degree. So I've got to have on this side x to the second plus x to the first plus x to the 0. I don't have x to the first, so I have to what? I have to put a placeholder in there. Now, a lot of people leave blanks. And you can do that, but that messes up a lot of people, so I don't teach it. So here, now on the outside, I have x squared, x to the first, and x to the what? 0, 2, 1, 0. Over here I have 3, 1, 0. What's missing? X squared. So I got to add x squared. Now I have 3, 2, 1, 0. You've got to have all place values depending on the leading coefficient. I mean the leading term of each, this side and this side. You have to have x squared, x to the first, x to the 0. Here you got to have x to the third, x squared, x to the first, x to 0. And now I'm ready to do my long division. And that's the one thing that people mess up, is they forget about this. All place values have to be accounted for. All right? So when you start long division, the first thing you do is make sure of that. So let's start off with something simple. X minus 1 into x squared minus 2x plus 1. Now, what do? You check it. Let's check it. Let's see, this is x to the first, so this has to be x to 0. That's good. 2, 1, 0. So is everything in place? Yes, everything's in place, so you don't have to add anything. Now you focus on this guy. You focus on him because that's the kite and this is the tail. You aren't worried about this guy. All you're worried about is this guy. You got to remember your rules of exponents now. If I divide, what am I going to be doing to the exponents? Subtracting. So, how many times will x to the first go into x squared? X to the first time, because 1 plus 1 is what? 2. Now let's go back to pre-algebra, or go back to basic math. 2 will go into 7. 3 times. 3 times 2 is 6, and you always subtract. 1, add a remainder. 2 will go into 10 5 times, and that's 10 with 0 remainder. Okay, let's refresh over our long division rules.
I hope you don't have that on the test.
No.
I haven't done that.
Okay. Well, that's why I did it. I did this, so you remember how to do long division. All right, so x times x to the first times x to the first is what? X to the second here. X times negative 1x to 0 is negative 1x what? To the first. And we always what? What do we always do? Subtract. So if you subtract, you can either put a big old subtraction symbol out here, or you can distribute that and make this a what? A negative, and make this a positive. However you do it, just don't do both, because if you do both, it's not going to be right. I usually distribute mine. That's up to you. All right? And what will happen 100% of the time with that first column? It will cancel. Is that supposed to happen? Yes. That will cancel. And then, what is negative 2x plus 1x? Negative 1x. And then the 1 comes down to help out. Now, how many times will x go into negative x times? Or negative x. How many times will x go into negative x times? Negative 1 time. Negative 1 times x is negative 1x. Negative 1 times negative 1 is what? Positive 1. We always subtract, and the big subtraction symbol makes this turn into a positive and this into a negative. And what happens to this term? Goes out. And what does this term do? What's 1 minus 1? 0. and you've just done long division. Give it a second while I hear it. Give it a second to sink in.
So you ended up, I guess, is it always going to end up with a negative to be like when we canceled the negative 2x?
It's going to end up whatever you want it to be. I'm not being smart aleck. You do whatever you want to get rid of that. In other words, the first column will always cancel. Okay? Because that's what you're manipulating. The second column, it'll be whatever it comes out to be.
Okay, like if that had been a positive, I mean, is your sign, when you put your -1 up there, does that always match the sign of that first column?
It's not always going to match because it all depends on what you're trying to get rid of on the bottom of it. It'll tell them after you do two for the problems, you'll start to see. Okay? Alright, let's do another. I'd rather have a headache than a toothache. X, what?
I don't have either of them.
Well, I'd rather have a headache. I know it'll go away. X minus 3 into X squared minus 9. Anything missing? No, that's what I heard. Yes. You gotta put it in there, so put it in there. What's missing? Well, nothing's missing on the outside. X minus 3 is okay. What's missing on the inside? Plus 0x minus 9. All right, now do it. What? What's today? Wednesday? Canceling my next 2 classes. Usually you can tell when your headache's getting worse or better. But right now it's not getting better.
Don't touch anything.
Huh?
I touch my right when it starts. It's not good for you.
You have migraine?
I normally didn't think I did. Normally mine is sinus related.
Yeah, but
That's
this one's
due to
not.
migraine too. I can feel like the barometric pressure come
Yeah.
on when it starts. But it's the same time that if I don't catch it,
Yeah,
right
this
when it
is
starts,
in the back of my head. I don't know if this was a slip wrong or what. Huh? Do you know what causes them or?
stress, lifestyle.
Yeah.
Anything can help. And I don't have to take like special medicine for my mental anxiety too. And right now, a lot of my headaches is sure due to stress. And I get headaches a lot.
When I get too tired.
I get them from eat. I'll skip them.
Yeah, one time I got a headache, so I was getting up early.
Yeah, I drank water this morning, so really, you know, stuff that Tri-County Tech has is so archaic. It's just ridiculous. I tried to copy and paste and it won't copy. Cause
You talking about in Blackboard?
yeah,
You
no,
gotta do-
in this, it's called Starfish. Where I
Yeah, you gotta do, you can copy it, but you gotta do Control V, paste it.
well, that's what I did. It didn't do it. I'm gonna try to copy it off my email.
And some of the things in Blackboard, all that, it's like, you kidding me? You couldn't choose a paste it.
I'll try it. Yep, I had to do it twice. Today's what, the 28th? There's students that screwed up.
And on Blackboard, you know, you submit an assignment, you can upload a document or do like the written submission. And that written submission has the worst spell check I've ever seen. They don't have words.
It's archaic.
They don't have, I mean, it's terrible. You know, we use it.
So what?
It's like, you know, you can upload a document to submit something.
Are you talking about the
Or you can
plagiarism check?
actually, no,
What are you talking about?
just like in an English class, you can do an assignment or you can do upload a document or there's a thing that you can actually write it all out. You know?
Uh-huh.
And on some of the exams, you have to write it out as a question and you fill it in.
Huh.
And the spell check is terrible. Like some of them, I would tell it to correct it, and it wouldn't correct it. It would keep it highlighted. I would hit it, fix it, and it still wouldn't. I can go back, correct it myself, and it still would highlight. I'd have to delete the entire word and redo it to get it to not highlight it.
Well, when I went down to take the state specific, there was 17 typos on the state specific.
Really,
I wrote a note on it.
really.
Yeah. I said, how do you expect students to do well on a test with 17 typos on it? That was the teacher in me coming out. The next one was fixed.
Really.
Yeah. Because I had to take it. And then I passed it. They wrote me a letter that says I failed it, but then they called me and said I passed it because they found 3 questions with the wrong answers on it.
Oh, really? That they had provided their own answer? Wow.
I tell you, that whole system down there is messed up. Okay, what am I doing? I'm writing my boss. No, pressure. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. I've never done this in a class before. I usually do it before classes start. The migraine with E. Okay, sorry about that. I know, I suck. Alright, so here we're going to do x. X minus 3. Okay, I've already put that in there, so that's fine. Alright, how many times will x? This is so frustrating. X, how many times will x go into x squared? X times, Hubert. Thank you, class. So x times x is x squared. X times negative 3 is what? You always subtract. That turns this into a negative and this into a positive. This goes out like it's supposed to. 0 plus 3 is what? Bring that down to help out. How many times will x go into 3x? 3 times. 3 times x is 3x. And 3 times negative 3 is the positive negative 9. You always subtract. That makes that a negative, and that's a positive. So that goes out. You're left with 0.
So that 0x truly is just a placeholder.
Just a placeholder.
Because I've done 4x.
What? Why'd you do 4x?
Because it was an accident.
You can't just make up. No.
Well,
You can't
I
just
was
put.
like, if I'm going to put it there, I'm going to use it. I thought you actually.
No, 0x.
Because I got 4x, so this is never going to work.
That's funny. No, you can't just put. Just remember this. You know, you have $0 in the bank. Can you just add $4 to your bank account without putting money in your bank account?
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. So you can't add 4x to a. You can't add that.
So that's why you're saying some people just leave a space.
Yeah.
Okay.
The problem with the space is sometimes if you're dealing with a long problem, your space gets lost in all your writing.
Gotcha.
That's why. Okay? One more. I really don't feel like one more, but I'm going to do one more. X squared minus 1 into x to the 4th plus 3 x to the 3rd minus 2x squared plus x minus 2. Now, is anything missing in here? 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Have y'all ever seen that rocket loan commercial? I think it's so annoying. On the radio, there's 4, 3, 2, 1.
I've heard it on the radio.
Oh gosh, so annoying.
And at the end, I always get.
Yeah.
It gets on my nerves.
So annoying. About as annoying as that Liberty insurance commercial. I had my car, and I named it Brad. I loved Brad. Oh my gosh, I want to throw a brick at the TV when I see that commercial.
I hate that one. What's the guy that's from the water company or something? He comes on, and then he comes back. They do a few more commercials, and he comes back. What is it? And they ask the question.
The plumbing commercial.
Maybe that's it.
Plumbing and electric.
Something.
He's basically a handyman.
Yeah, and he comes on,
And then like another commercial later, he comes back.
yeah.
They don't get on my nerves as much as that. And I named it Brad. I loved Brad. Brick. I want to throw brick. What other commercials get on my nerves? Oh my gosh. These commercials about the bully with the Cyclops, the little one eye. They're walking around, everybody has one eye. Have y'all seen that commercial? And they play that freaky music. And they throw stuff at the kid. Have y'all seen that commercial? I cannot stand that commercial. Grow a spine. Dang old. Defend yourself. Let somebody else defend yourself. Oh gosh. United States. We're going to be the USP. United States of Kansas. No, they just kill them.
I never actually thought of that. That's the problem in Europe.
You know what I would think of? If China abides by the what do you call it, global warming initiatives. They over there making gas and making drilling for oil. They don't care about the lizards or the frogs over there. I just wonder if they abide by all the global warming standards.
And the sewer system in Beijing pumps straight into the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's very
you didn't hear about Rio?
Yeah,
Rio
I was
de
about to say,
Janeiro?
Rio's the same way.
Rio, they pump their sewage into the lake right there. That's why the people had to wear gloves and stuff when they were doing the rowing.
And there was a sewage leak from the main hospital there.
And body parts. There were body parts out there too.
So sick. But yeah,
But
America,
the United States is a terrible country.
Yeah, we're
awful.
horrible. Yeah.
Yeah, we're awful.
Right, you shouldn't say anything to them because it's not fair for them. They didn't have a chance.
They didn't have a chance. Yeah. I don't want to offend anybody.
Dig up the conquistadors and give them the whooping.
Yeah.
It's their fault.
They get mad in America because a black cop shoots a black guy with a gun. I'm sorry, it was a book in the holster. I'm sorry, and you get mad at me if you want to. If I stood up and took a gun and either pulled it out of a holster or aimed it at a police officer, I don't care what color that police officer is, he's going to shoot my ass. I mean, that's his life or mine. And to him, I'm a criminal. I'm sorry.
Well, at what point when a cop tells you stop, you still have rights to do what you want? You know, once you decide, I'm not going to do what you say, it's like, okay, you're on their terms.
You just release your rights when you do that.
Well, it's like during a protest, you saw a sign that said resist the cops. And it's just like, yeah, that's
And who's the first person they're going to call when their house gets broken into?
It's like, you do realize that that is not your right to resist the law.
Oh, all right. So x squared will go into x to the fourth. X squared times x squared times x squared is x to the fourth. X squared times 0x is 0x to the third. X squared times 1, negative 1 is negative 1x squared. And what do? We always what? Subtract. So that makes this a negative, makes this a negative, makes this a positive. This goes out like it's supposed to. What's 3 plus 0? What's 3 minus 0? I just wanted to go back to that. 3x cubed. Negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1x squared. And then you bring the x down to help out. Now, how many times will x squared go into 3x cubed? 3x what? Nope. You got to do that on the next one. 3x times, because 3x times x squared is what? 3x cubed. 3x times 0 is 0x squared. Oops. And 3x times negative 1 is what? 3x here. Thank you, class. Negative. I don't know why this thing is making all kind of marks up here. Positive. And 3x cubes go out. Negative 1x squared plus 0x squared. What's negative 1x squared plus 0x squared? Negative 1x squared, Hubert. What's 1x plus 3x? And the 2 comes down to help out. What?
So you don't bring the 2 down until later.
2 will go into 75, 756. 2 will go into 7 3 times. That's 6. Minus 1. That'll be a 1. Do you bring these 2 down at one time?
I don't know.
You don't know.
Hey, it's been since 5th grade, like I said.
Okay, well, I'm trying to review it.
That's
No,
20
you
years
don't.
ago.
You don't bring that down. You bring down 5. Yeah. Good point. All right. How many times will 2 go into 15? 7 times. 2 times 7 is 14. Then what?
So when you bring it
You
down.
bring it down.
That's so much easier.
What?
I don't mind that.
Well, you're doing the same thing over here, except instead of multiplication tables, you have to remember what? Your exponential rules.
Hey, just so you know, for my dough question, that's the best answer. I hate it when somebody just says, "Oh no, when you do this, this is what you do." That's seriously, I'll remember that. Right
Well,
there.
good. No, let's finish at 16 here. Now, how many times will x squared go into x squared? Negative 1x squared. How many times? Negative 1 times. That's right. Negative 1 times x squared is negative 1x squared. Negative 1 times 0 is 0 x. And negative 1 times negative 1 is what? Positive 1. Did I say 1? And this turns into a positive. This turns into a negative. Doesn't matter. This turns into a negative. This goes out. 4x plus 0x is 4x. And negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. Remaining. So you could write this as x squared plus 0x minus 1 will go into this. X squared plus 3x minus 1 with a remainder of 4x minus 3. Or x squared plus 3x plus minus 1, comma, 4x minus 3 over what? X squared minus 1. Just like you would put the remainder down here over this 2. There goes the remainder. All right. Now, next week, Monday, y'all need to be ready for Unit 1, Unit 2 test. Unit 1, Unit 2 test. The Unit 1, Unit 2 test will be heavy. The Unit 1 test will be heavy on compression, stretching, vertical and horizontal shifts, and orientation. In other words, A, K, H, and then what that tells you. That's what Unit 1 will cover. The 80% of the test will be on those type questions. The type that follow f of x is equal to A times H plus x plus H, quantity squared, absolute value, quantity cubed, any of those, plus K. anything having to do with those will be about 80% of your Unit 1 test. Unit 2 test, what do you think it's going to be?
Completely square.
Yep. Unit 2 will be 80% complete with square, which gives you what? Which gives you that. So you can go through and do this also for the Unit 2 test. There's 80% of the Unit 1 test, 80% of the Unit 2 test, which covers completeness square, as well as this right here will be 80%. You're going to see that the two tests are very similar.
So we've been graphing some of those on the test.
Yeah, you could be.
Is it one of those deals?
I don't want to do the ones that are confusing. No.
Yeah, because like we record.
I'd rather just you be able to look at it and tell it multiple choice.
Okay. Yeah.
Because those that you have to graph are very confusing and misleading.
Yeah. I wanted to punch myself in the face trying to graph something.
Those are aggravating.
So the
Okay.
homework needs to be completed by Monday?
Yeah, you need to go ahead and finish it because that's when I'm going to probably start the test after y'all's class. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and shut this down. Y'all go ahead and